To order the Town Board Workshop for January 22nd, 2026. I invite Pat Stevens up to give his presentation on low bids for the Salt Barn / Wash Station.
Thank you very much. Thank you to the board for having me in tonight to go over the results of a project we've been discussing for quite some time, the replacement of our salt storage facility, which also has a component of water quality improvement in the form of a truck washout associated with it. We put out bids for the construction of a new facility to replace the one you see on the first slide of the presentation here back in the end of November and received bids on December 10th. And we're going to go over the results of those bids tonight as they relate to previously discussed estimates for cost. And then the other items related to the need of doing this project at this time. So start off with just kind of a baseline of facts relating to why this project is here now, why it's being discussed. We've had a structural engineering review of the existing salt barn, which indicates that doing additional repairs to the existing salt barn would be cost prohibitive. And that the functional operation of the building beyond this season, this winter, is questionable at best. The current salt barn only holds approximately half of our annual salt usage. This is mostly because the facility was built 41 years ago when our town was much smaller. Webster's grown a great deal since 1984 when the existing building was built originally, so our salt usage is higher. So we want to try to be closer to that annual usage amount so that we don't have to rely on deliveries during the winter like we do currently. That relates to the next item, the salt shortages. They are expected again this year. I actually just saw, I was on an email chain with other Monroe County highway superintendents this afternoon where they were discussing if anybody had seen any issues yet, and this week was the first time when there was 2 towns that indicated they had not received their deliveries within a week of ordering, which is the requirement in New York State OGS. So this was kind of the first week where a couple of folks had indicated slower deliveries than normal. So unfortunately, it seems like at least in the near future here, these shortages are going to become more of a reality. And when we have those shortages and not enough room for storage on site, it creates a significant threat to driver safety if we can't treat the roads. Pushing this project down the road, revising the scope will have additional expense, additional effort needed on the engineering side, and having a smaller scope of work also decreases some of the efficiency that we get with a slightly larger project like we have it currently. Completing this project after there is a more significant structural failure than we have now. Not only threatens the safety of the residents and the staff that would be working around the facility, but it also would have to be done under emergency procedures. And anytime you do construction under emergency situations or conditions, your costs are higher. You're pulling in contractors that are already at work. Therefore, the premiums that they charge to come on an emergency basis are much more in the short term. So those are just some of the key factors related to why we're discussing this now. So related to the salt shortages, this photo was from last winter. This is the current salt barn, and there is not enough salt in that pile to do another salt run that covers the entire town. So this was as low as we got. This is the smallest amount that we had. We usually want to have 10 times this amount minimum to be comfortable. But last year we did get down. We had a week where we were down to not enough. Luckily, the next day after this, loads did come, and we were able to replenish the stock and never run out and never have a lapse in service, but it did get pretty low. If you've seen the barn, this is a very small pile. Within that, usually it's stacked, all the way to the top of the picture, and at least double that distance out the building. So getting right into cost savings that we have tried to attain on the project. These were presented earlier. Once we got bids, we were able to look at some value engineering items. So the list of items that's provided by the general contractor is the 8 items you see there. And then some of those items we're currently recommending to take as cost savings. Rock allowance, would be rock in the ground that needs to be dug out. We carry a certain amount for that because you can't see it, it's beneath the ground. But all of our geotechnic information that we've received doesn't indicate that there is any. So we're hoping that won't be expended. They did offer, these are all decreased values that they offer as value engineering. They also offered that if they didn't have to do the performance bond, there'd be a reduction. If there wasn't some additional insurances, there'd be a reduction. We're not recommending to take those. We want them to keep the bonding and the insurances that are required. Removal of winter conditions. So this is just a scheduling item. If they have to construct portions of the building during the winter months, there's cost associated with constructing during the winter, mostly protecting the concrete and things of that nature. If we were able to manage the project in a way that they didn't have to do some of the critical parts in the coldest winter months, wait till the weather is a little bit better, there's a credit for that. We think we can take advantage of that based on the current timing of the project from possibly today to when they would start. Changing to a shingle roof from a metal roof was a cost savings, which is a little surprising given the situation, but the metal roof really offers the best durability, so we weren't going to take that credit. Changing the building fascia, I believe there's a certain PVC board recommended right now. If we go with a standard aluminum fascia on a portion of it, there's a $14,000 savings. And then exclude railing paint. There's one of the railings in there that apparently has a special kind of paint on it. It's not in a place where it would receive some kind of special condition that it needs the paint, so we would recommend taking the $5,000 savings and not painting the railing. And then this was the bigger factor. This was the alternate that we had, was to utilize wood push walls, kind of like you see in the picture on the right, on the existing barn, instead of concrete walls. At this point, they're offering $170,000 savings for that, but I'm not recommending it at this time because I do think the concrete is a superior, more durable product, and I think on the scale of the project, it will yield a better facility for a longer period of time. I alluded to the picture on the right. This is one of the current wooden push wall supports, one of the tiebacks that's already had to be repaired because of its age and condition. You can see it's kind of piecemealed together there with a new post and then a vertical post that's completely wrapped in new boards to keep it in place. So that's one of the conditions that's out there. Back to the savings. There's a portion of the site work that's primarily paving and earthwork, which is a lot of what we do that we think we can self-perform. There would be a significant savings there by not awarding that site contract, performing it ourselves. We would still have to pay for the materials, so those are factored into the cost, but we think we could save about $530,000 by performing that work ourselves. Given what the scope is, we feel we can do that. There's CHIPS funding from the state that has language in there that allows it to be used for a facility like this, for a storage facility. We get that annually from the state. We currently have enough of a surplus in that coming into 26 where we can utilize those funds to offset some of this per the guidelines of the usage of that money. The next one is one of the more exciting ones. We've now received word from the DEC that we have received a grant for $600,000 toward our project here under the basis of the water and quality improvements that having covered salt storage and the truck washout that we're proposing will be. So when you take the totality of all the highlighted items on this page, you come up with a total of a little over $1.5 million in cost savings that we've been able to put together in relation to this project. So given we did just receive the grant, I wanted to talk a little bit about that. It is a water quality improvement grant. The next step that will happen with it would be a grant award contract will be sent. That contract will outline everything that was described in the application, and it will need to be complete. So it'll need to match the application, which includes everything that's in our current contracted scope for these bids. The truck washout is a key component to meeting EPA standards. And I know our application referenced bringing the facility overall into compliance with the EPA standards that we have. It's a pretty special award also because it's only the second one, I believe, in the state for a salt storage replacement facility. Historically, they are only for townships or municipalities that don't have cover over their salt. So they basically have a pile of salt sitting outside, so every time it rains, that salt melts away and goes into the waterways. But more recently, they've given a couple awards. We would be the second. We are now the second to be awarded for a replacement of one of those facilities versus a new facility. This award also emphasizes the importance of the town's continued dedication to our MS4 program, and shows that we are dedicated to leading by example when it comes to capital improvement projects and development. Getting our facilities into compliance with the MS4 and the EPA standards has definitely been a goal for everything. So then just one little note at the bottom that in discussing this grant recently and what are the parameters with it, that there's definitely a factor that failure to utilize awarded grant funds that negatively affects future applications for townships and different things. So wanted to mention that. It's a key component that's come up in our discussions about the grant recently. So now we jump into a budget, which is going to align with our last presentation, where we had a pre-bid estimate outlining the items here: the salt barn, the truck washout, an incidental budget for construction management, things of that nature. The demo was broken out. Paving and utilities is where we want to self-perform the work, and then the construction contingency that we're carrying. So here we see that the bids came in about $350,000 under the last estimate that we brought to the board, so they're slightly less. There's some of the items that have gone up and down, but the net is about $350,000 less, and then we were able to tighten that contingency, resulting in closer to $600,000 less than the estimate that was provided before. So then we factor in the possible cost savings. We had a larger possible cost savings during the estimate. Those items are related to a slightly more aggressive approach to the self-performance. I think that the number we're utilizing for this is a very conservative number, and we may even be able to have more savings than we're projecting here by self-performing, but we want to be conservative with that. Worked with Paul Adams to make sure that those numbers were conservative, so that went down slightly. And then some of the value engineering that we had put earlier. We expected the alternate to go to a wood push wall instead of concrete to be a much larger dollar value than it turned out to be at bid time. So those are the factors that caused the current projected cost savings to be less than what we projected before. There's a note there about which VE items were taken in this consideration, which ones weren't. So the net total comes in just about $35,000 less than the estimate we discussed here previously for what we're proposing. So if we look at both phase 1 and phase 2 of the overall project, which would be the new highway facility upgrades, we have the total to date for the existing building that's already in place, along with Cliff Jones improvements. Funds that have already been allocated out of either the general fund or ARPA funds to date on that portion of the project. The costs that we have per the bids for the salt barn, the truck wash, the demo, and the paving utilities, along with a construction contingency and an incidental budget to handle any further construction management cost, and then the identified cost savings that we outlined in previous slides. Make the net just under $26 million total for the facility upgrades. The approved bond amount for the highway facility upgrades was $28,250,000. So our current estimate would bring us in $2.3 million under that bond approval. So the photo you see here is roughly half of our fleet of 26 trucks currently, all full of salt, sitting in the garage. So this is how they sit, waiting for it to snow, like it just started to when I came in here. And it sounds like they went out. My phone was buzzing, so they're out on the roads right now with these trucks. But we load them, and they're in this facility, and they're able to stay warm and ready to go so that they go out at a moment's notice. So that's what the photo is. Next steps would be to award the bids and complete the upgrades under budget. So questions, comments? This photo here on the last page is also last year. You see some untreated salt. We put an additive to our salt that allows it to work better during colder conditions, and it has better adhesion to the road, so it stays on the road longer. It looks like the darker brown in the back after we treat it. So untreated salt, way in the back, our treated salt, and on the right-hand side is some salt that came out of Albany last year on emergency contract that must be out of a different part of the world because it comes in untreated looking that color instead of what we get from local sources here. So that is what I have. Happy to discuss or answer any questions that I can.
So, Pat, you said there's not going to be construction management or,
Yeah, so the incidental budget will cover for some construction management. So I plan to take, since it's the size and scale of the project and what it is as far as complexity, I'll have a larger role than during the large facility upgrade.
Okay.
So we'll essentially use them for documentation recording. So that I do anticipate a construction manager, but more in an administrative role than day-to-day. I'll handle all the day-to-day.
will that be campus?
Possibly. We're going to use our process to determine what the
Gotcha.
consultant is with it. They have the most experience, so my
You're
guess
familiar
is,
with the whole project also.
yeah,
so
yeah, and
makes
they've helped
sense.
with the bids and everything, so I'm assuming that will make sense, but we're going to put some scopes together and get some estimates and discuss that. But
Do you have a planned start date and the duration of the project by chance?
that's adjusted a little bit just because of the timing post-bid, so
Right.
I'd say we've slid about a month. The goal would be to get it done before next snow season.
Okay.
And I think that's still an attainable goal at this point, so before next November.
What was the percentage of your contingency? I know I saw the amount, but didn't do the math yet.
Percent base is pretty low, and again, it's tied to the complexity of the project not being very high. There's less unknowns
Right.
than you would have on a standard project. It's on the footprint of an existing building, so we felt comfortable bringing that down very low percentage at this point, just based on the conditions that we're seeing out there and what we think there is for risk. The other aspect, that, as I've been going through this managerially and looking at it, is by taking the portion of self-performance that we have, we could very easily phase portions of that if we had financial issues. And what I mean by that is there's components of the pavement we could do a very basic level and hold off
Right.
until another time to do further point. It could be hundreds of thousands of dollars in material costs that we could change the timing on without having a contract obligation implication. So I think that is going to function as an additional level of coverage to possibly be a relief valve if something did come up, which is another factor in the low contingency.
So I guess the only other area, not really concerned, but I'm curious as to, I understand that you want to do the cement walls versus the wood, okay? What's the life expectancy of the wood versus the concrete? Because there's $170,000 savings. by
Yeah,
going
it's
with
been a big question this week, and it is one of the bigger savings items. No design professionals have been willing to give me a number, right? It's nice to have a finite number to say this lasts 10 years longer, this lasts 20 years longer. They have indicated that because of the factors, what type of wood, how thick is the wood, you know, all of these things, because we don't have it designed, because it's only an alternate, it would have to come from a manufacturer as the proposed design. Without some of those specific particulars, they aren't able to assign a number. The biggest factor, I think, if it designed in a certain way, the longevity, so the life expectancy could be very similar, but the durability is not going to be the same. So if you have any bumps knocking into it, pushing against it, things like that, the concrete is much more durable during its life in how it reacts to any sort of punishment or wear and tear that comes up against it, which is, I think, where it's definitely superior at this point. So it's kind of a tough question to answer. That's why I haven't gotten an answer on it. I have asked 3 different entities for a more direct answer. Some don't respond. Other folks say they can't answer it without a full design of the wood. So It's not very clean cut as to exactly what that answer is, but if you just think about the surface of those things and say a loader bumps into it or runs into it, how a piece of wood would react versus a piece of concrete, and that's what I mean by the durability of
Yeah,
the
exactly.
walls overall.
So those walls have been up since, what, 1984?
These have, yeah.
And no loaders have run into it since you've been there, have they?
No, you can see some of the repairs in this picture where sometimes you do hit the upper portions more so than the bottom. But I can tell you that I don't know exactly how thick these boards were, but some of them are very thin and some of them are broken and there's salt coming out the sides in different spots. So I think you're right. You know, this is over 40 years old and it's been okay. But it's definitely in a more fragile state than I think a concrete wall would be at the same situation.
With the concrete walls, do they give you an estimate to like reseal and maintain those concrete walls over time?
I think they don't recommend any special treatment. I'm not sure exactly what they use for the bar, the steel inside the wall, that can be a factor. But other than that, when they put the concrete up, they put a sealer that penetrates at least an inch or two into it that prevents stuff. So I think the maintenance would be the same here, which is part of
Redoing
the
that
durability.
sealer every so often?
Yeah, yep. I think it's only every 5 years, but I'm not sure if they would recommend it more often on this. I'm just
Okay.
thinking about floors in the buildings.
Yeah, or just how much it is to do it?
Oh, the sealer?
Yeah,
I would say less than 5,000.
Okay.
I've done large sections of floors. It's all per square foot.
okay.
So the square footage of the wall.
So
in
not a
here
terrible
would-
difference then in the maintenance of
I don't
the wood
think,
versus the
I
concrete?
don't think so, because the wood, you wouldn't really do much to it. But like I said, this stuff here is definitely in quite a fragile state. If you go up and look at it and touch it, it's,
Okay.
For the wood, for the new one, do we not know what kind of wood they plan on using? Is it gonna be different than the current that we have? Are they gonna use a cheaper one? Was that disclosed in the bids?
no, there wasn't, particulars like that provided
So
about.
that $170,000, is it contingent on a very specific type of wood we're using, or could we get something sturdier?
That, we haven't discussed that. Now, I would have to see what they propose. So it would start by saying, okay, can you give me the particulars about what you've
Yeah, my,
put in
my
here?
fear would be a contractor coming in looking to get wood and then save their bottom line by using a cheaper one, which then, you know, bites us in the butt later on down the road.
Yeah, it would have to be
be
cycled and reviewed by the design team, you know. It would have to be deemed adequate. They wouldn't be able to just do that automatically and still only give us 170,000. So if we headed in that direction, the next step would be to get the particulars on it. Given that it's an alternate, I don't know exactly what the sequence would be to get to that point, but we couldn't get to it. We wouldn't let that happen, essentially, is
But
what you're
if-
describing.
If we went with the wood instead for the amendment, would that, and then making sure that we're using proper materials, how far out would that push the beginning construction of the project?
That's hard to tell. It shouldn't be significant, but I can't really speak to it without talking to the general contractor about what they would
So
think.
they didn't spell out any specific type of wood.
No, no. I mean, the specs talk about what the structural wood needs to be, but
Right.
whether the push wall itself is actually thicker or bigger because it's not a design item, it's an alternate, I don't know those particulars
Gotcha.
right now.
Do you know by chance, just in a ballpark, how much we paid on repairs and maintenance for the current barn in the last 5 to 10 years? Because that might answer some of our questions in terms of maintenance on the wood barn.
In the last 5 to 10 years, so 10 years ago, there was a roof replacement on it that was a significant cost.
Sure.
Well over 50,000. I don't have those exact records just because haven't compiled them that way.
Sure.
And then I would say year over year for the last 5 years, probably average 2,500 a
Sure.
year, I would say, in just minor boards and fasteners being replaced and different plates that have sort of sistered together with things, like the repair that I showed in that picture. I would roughly say 2,500 a year at least for the
Okay.
last 5 years.
So more
minimum.
for consideration, our biggest concerns are gonna be around the roof as being the bigger maintenance cost for this building in the next however many years. So that metal roof versus shingles is probably a big deal when it comes to the longevity of that.
Yeah.
You know, aside from just the wood and the concrete, but it doesn't seem like from a maintenance standpoint, there's that much of a difference year over year, but the risk is higher.
Yeah, year over year, the maintenance of wood versus concrete and that thing wouldn't be significantly different.
Sure.
Correct, yeah. Based on my experience.
When we
Thank you
have,
so much.
sorry, when we have to make repairs, do we use our own people for that, or do we have to contract out?
For the repairs we've needed on this, we utilized our own staff for it. We have guys that have carpentry skills. For the roof, that was hired out.
Okay.
Pat, you talked about the savings from doing the self-work. You may have partially answered this by talking about phasing of the project. When you factored in the cost savings, did you factor in any missed revenue opportunity from the folks who would be working, excuse me, on this not being able to do county or other revenue work?
Yeah, we would not be entertaining that. So the scope of the site work, not many of the items in it hit critical path for the structure of the building, right? Because the building's going on the other one, the critical path for installing the new salt facility is the demo of the existing building and the construction of the new one in its spot. So there isn't really any site work prep, therefore those items can go and we can do it at our leisure. So there's a flexible schedule, and we might have talked about this at a certain point.
Yep.
But because the items that we're gonna self-perform don't hit the critical path of the project, we have flexibility, and with that flexibility, we're able to make sure we accomplish all of our revenue goals and our maintenance work, and then perform these duties as they're able to fit in the schedule without having impact to those
Got it.
types of things.
Got it. I was very surprised with the concrete walls being only 170,000 left. And I was also very surprised with the life expectancy of the wood versus the concrete, because I would have, I mean, what they at least projected based on the bid responses, I don't remember the number, but it seemed like it might have been only like 5 or 7 years. It was a very
Yeah.
low number. So I can see why moving forward with the concrete would be important, because on one hand, it's a lot of money, but on the other hand, it'll still last another, at least another 5 to 7 years over the wood, which seems to make sense to do that for that reason, plus the durability reason. One of the things I read in the insurance letter, it was like a mixed message in the insurance letter, because somewhere it said there could be an estimate of like 5 to 10 years of life on this building, albeit it's 40 years old, but 10 years would be an awful lot and have a lot of risk and potential maintenance. But, you know, the other piece of the insurance that I want to make sure is brought forward, because at the same time in that letter, it also said, given the state of this structure, if anything happened to it, it wouldn't be covered, because it's already deteriorated beyond its life.
Yeah, with this, there was a lot of, right, we want to make sure that this is needed, right, not just wanted. So we had a structural assessment done by some folks, and that's what you're referring to.
Yes.
And that had different guidance, different generalities in it about the condition that they were able to observe without taking things apart and actually looking things. And the results of that letter, we now understand from talking to our agencies that insure us, but makes it become a known factor that there's major deficiencies for this. Therefore, a claim of insurance for its failure apparently would not be possible now that we have that knowledge.
And I think that's a very important aspect of how we move forward with that project, because if it's basically not insurable based on that structural assessment, I guess there's two big reasons. One, you don't want to take a $600,000 grant. That's the second one ever awarded for a salt barn. Probably had a lot to do with the truck washout as well from an environmental perspective. But that would be a double whammy to give back the grant and then have insurance issues.
Well, but to clarify the insurance, when they looked into it, even without the letter, if it fell apart because of old age, it wasn't gonna be covered. And then our max insurance coverage on the building, I think was $257,000. So even in the miracle that insurance covered it,
It's not gonna cover anything.
257, and this is 6 million is, so we can
Nothing.
kind of say that insurance is the,
Yeah, I don't think there's any question that this is not a want, this is a need.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's getting old.
Absolutely. The only question is the cement versus the wood walls, for a
What-
cost savings of $170,000.
And one other question for you, Pat, you know, there were some emails about the fireproofing standards from New York. Can we look into, is there any way to have this building be considered fireproof to improve our bonding years from 15 to 30?
Yeah, we were looking into that. We were talking with Paul about that. I don't know, I didn't get to the point of asking what would need to be
Yeah.
incorporated in order to get that. We didn't quite get to that point, and Paul's been out of town a little bit. So, yeah, we can definitely continue that conversation to see if there's any, minimal items that wouldn't have additional costs that we could utilize. But it was my understanding that the biggest portion, in order to be fireproof, high percentage of the components of the building need to be completely fireproof, which would be metal or concrete. And even if we go with the concrete push walls, there's gonna be a large portion of this that's wood framed on the top. So I'm not sure what that would look like, but it's
Yeah.
definitely
But something to
worth
look into,
considering.
of, you know, the difference between a 15-year and a 30-year bond is significant to our finances.
Yep.
So if we gotta spend just a little to get the 30-year, it can help pay for itself with that. Because I agree with John, like, it's needed, right? This has been a known
Yeah.
thing for a while.
You also bring up an interesting insurance point, and that concrete walls are gonna make an insurance policy cheaper for this building as opposed to the wood. So there's gonna be some long-term savings there, year over year.
Sure, yeah.
Yeah, I'd like to know what those numbers are.
Yeah, that's something, I think it's pretty easily attainable. Our insurance provider's pretty quick to respond, so we should be able to
Okay.
get that, yeah.
All right, do we have any other questions from the board?
I don't.
No? All right, that.
Thanks, Pat.
Thank you
Yeah,
so much.
thank
Thank you.
Pat.
Thanks, guys.
Thank
Thanks.
But that concludes our town board workshop, and stick around, we'll be doing our town board meeting